Good evening. Hope all of you are doing well. No, this is not a pretend background. This is actually the real deal. Just sitting out here, a beautiful day somewhere, and I have no idea where I am, somewhere in Indiana. Let us get started with today's daf. Today we're going to be learning almost a blot and a half. We're going to learn up until the Mishnah and Yud Amud Aleph, and we're starting on Ches Amud Beis. We're starting at Rami Berei de Rav Yeva, about 6 lines into the wide lines. So again, we're starting Ches Amud Beis, 6 lines into the wide lines, and we had been discussing the halachos of a koi, of an animal that is a suffix chaya, suffix behema, and whether or not we would do kisui hadam. So here the Gemara introduces another possibility about a koi and why it is that we are reticent to do kisui hadam. Says the Gemara, Rami Berei de Rav Yeva. He says, hold on one second. Omar, he says, koi hainu taimadol mechasinan. The reason why on Yom Tov, why we don't cover the blood of a koi, why we don't do kisvei hadam, is because we're afraid that people will misunderstand and assume that it's chayla is mutter to eat, and because it's a suffix of chaya and behema, it's not mutter to eat because that's a suffix d'oraisa. It says the Gemara, that's why on Yontif we don't do kisvei hadam by a koi. It says the Gemara, what does that have to do with Yontif? If you're concerned about people understanding that maybe if they see you doing kisui hadam, they should assume that the chaylev is that of a behemoth and therefore mutter. Says the Gemara, hold on one second. Even during the week, it should be the same exact concern. The only time that the chaylev is mutter is when it's a chaya mamish. But this is a suffix, chaya suffix behemoth, we don't know. So therefore, during the week, we should also have the same rule. Says the Gemara, halfway through the wide lines on Ches Amud Beis, no. During the week, you're shechting the animal in your backyard. It's just lenakir, just to clean up your backyard. You don't want pools of blood. So what you do is you cover it up. Because you're covering it up, so all is well. And no one will think that it's to be matir chaylev. They'll just think that it's because they want you to, they just want to make sure you're keeping your backyard clean. Says the Gemara, maybe, but what if it isn't in a place that you care to keep clean? What would be the din if in fact you were doing this in the alley, a place where you don't care what it looks like? Or or if a person who's going to shech the koi comes to ask a shaila, what then would you paskin for him? Ella, says the Gemara, if it's during the week, then I might think the following. During the week, even though it's a suffix, everyone will recognize that it's a suffix, so then people will be matriachi, but no one's going to really make the error of assuming that the chaylev is mutter. People know these halachos better than we assume. But the Yom Tov, when it comes to Yom Tov and you have a suffix, so there, and the rabbis are not going to tell you to go to the nth degree to do kisui hadam, and we're not going to allow kisui hadam by a koi. Basically, we're not concerned about hataras chelbo, of people assuming that this suffix of a chaya, suffix of a behema, that people will see the kisui hadam and therefore assume that it's chaylev is mutter when there is a suffix d'oraisa status. And the Gemara continues 5 lines from the bottom. Tani Reb Zera lo koi b'lvadam. This isn't only true about koi. Even if you shechted animals that were vadai animals, you shechted an animal that's vadai achaya, which its chaylev is mutter, and an animal which is vadai behema, and its chaylev is not mutter, but the blood got all mixed up. The halacha is also the chasoso b'yom tov. Still, the chachamim were not matriach you to go cover that up because that blood is a mixture. The animals were not a suffix, but the mixture of the blood is now a suffix as to what blood belongs to who, what blood belongs to which type of animal. Amar Rabbi Yossi bar Yasimia, Yoshanu ela she'en yachol lechasosa b'dikira achas. The only time we say that the chachamim are not matriach you to do the kisui hadam by the koi, or by a case where the bloods of a behema and a chaya got mixed up, is where you're not able to cover it with 1 shovel's worth of dirt. Because that's not considered tirfa yisera. That's easy. 1 shovel full of dirt covers all the blood. Shalom al Yisrael. Everybody's happy. That works out great. Says the Gemara 2 lines from the bottom. Pshita. Absolutely right. Why would you not cover it? It's easy. Why would you not cover it? There is some blood in there that actually belongs to a behemoth. So get it done. Says the Gemara. I might have thought that, well, I think it's going to be 1 shovel's worth, but there's a chance that it might be 2 shovels worth. And if that's true, then I'm concerned that I may not be able to then may not be able to even do the one because maybe I misjudged and I don't need one shovel's worth of dirt. I need two. Kamash Malanda, that's fine. You don't care. If your assessment is that it's one, then do the one. If you end up needing two, then you'll need two, no problem. Similarly, last line on Chesim and Beis, the Gemara says, Amar Rabba, Shachat Tzipor me'erev Yom Tov ein mechasin oso b'Yom Tov. Let's say that you did shchita 5 minutes before Yom Tov started, but you didn't do kisui hadam. The halacha is ein mechasin oso b'Yom Tov. We don't do kisui hadam. Take a look at Rashi. Second to last line, Dibur Hamaschal and mechasin oso b'Yom Tov. The shchita was done before. You should have done it before Yom Tov kicked in. We don't have to worry about having held back this person from Simchas Yom Tov because the Kisui Hadam is not Me'akev Achila. It is a separate mitzvah in and of itself, and it does not inhibit you from eating that animal. That's what Rashi says explicitly, the last 10 words or so on the page. Dimishum de lo mechase dam. Because of the fact that you didn't do Kisui Hadam, lo mechaser tzipor be'achila. Lo mitzar, lo mitzar. We don't forbid the bird to be eaten. Therefore, when it comes to Kisui Hadam, if you did the Shechita right before Yom Tov kicked in, and you wanted to do the Kisui Hadam afterwards, we don't allow for that to take place. Similarly, but with a different result, and not really speaking about Kisui Hadam, just conceptually similar, the Gemara says, well, what about a slightly different case? What about a case where Galgel Isa be'erev Yom Tov, you take 5 pounds of challah and you turn it into dough, and now you want to be mafresh, the clock ticked shkia. Now it's Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, you are allowed to be mafresh. That's what the Shita is of Rabbah. Arguing against Rabbah is Avuha de Shmuel, the father of Shmuel. They did not live at the same time. Rabbah was a 3rd century Amorah, and Shmuel was a 1st/2nd century Amorah, and this is Shmuel's father. So it's doubtful that they overlapped historically. Avuha de Shmuel Amar, he says, he was of the opinion, Omar, Afilu Gilgel Isa me'erev Yom Tov, ein mafresh mimena chalas Yom Tov, that even if you have Isa mamash, still ein mafresh. Maybe we should say, Lema Plida de Shmuel de Avuha. Maybe the Shita of Shmuel that we're about to see argues on his father. His father said that you're not allowed to be mafresh the challah. What does Shmuel say? The Amar Shmuel, 5th line on Daf Testament Aleph, he says, he says you do some kind of hafresh. So the Avuha de Shmuel said ain't mafresh. Shmuel said you should be mafresh. So it says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi No, they all agree that if you were to in fact do the activity of hafresha, it would actually work. So therefore they don't disagree with one another. That brings us to the new Mishnah on Testament Aleph, 8 lines down. This Mishnah is a continuation of our Mishnah on Daf Beis. Our Mishnah on Daf Beis quoted a number of machlokos between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, and here the Gemara continues on that same theme. Beis Shammai omer mein molichin es asur mishovach v'shovach. Let's say that you have 2 shovach and you have 2 chicken coops, 2 pigeon coops, whatever they are. So the halacha is that you're not allowed to take the ladder from one shovach, and it says Beis Shammai, and bring it to another shovach. So we have shovach number 1, it holds 10 pigeons. You have shovach number 2 a few feet away, and that also holds 10 pigeons. So from shovach number 1 to shovach number 2, you cannot use the ladder. However, aval matei mechala mechala. But Beis Shammai does allow for taking within one shovach and taking the ladder to window 1 to window 2 within shovach 1. You just can't go from shovach to shovach. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah Beis Hillel Matir. Now let's analyze this. Amar Rav Chanan bar Ami. This is version number 1 of our understanding of our Mishnah. Machlokes b'rshus harabim. The only time the machlokes of Beis Hillel Beis Shammai applies is when we're b'rshus harabim. The Beis Shammai sabri haroa omer la'atiach kol gehutzarech. Beis Shammai was concerned about what we refer to as marasai. He was afraid that if people were able to see you, that it was in a public space, people would think you're taking a ladder, you're going up there to patch the roof. La'atiach kol gehutzarech. Beis Hillel sabri shofo mochiach alav. No. People are going to see what you're doing. It's a special ladder specifically made for the shovach, specifically made for the chicken coop. No one's going to think twice about it. L'mashal, if you have that ladder that everybody has in their libraries, that you have a ladder in your library, so that's a specific kind of ladder. It has a look to it. It has wheels on the bottom. No one's going to confuse that with the ladder that you use to go fix a light bulb outside in your house. No one. So here too, Beis Hillel says, what are you talking about, Beis Shammai? It's totally fine. Everybody knows what they're looking at. There's no marasai. Everybody knows that this ladder is perfect for the shovach, nothing to worry about. Aval, halfway down, Testament Aleph, Aval, B'rshus hayachid divrei hakomet. When it comes to a Rishus HaYachid, Divrei HaKol Mutter, everyone agrees that it's going to be okay. So what does the Gemara seem to imply? That according to Beis Shammai, it's usher in public, but it's mutter in private. And that breaks one of the famous rules of Maras Ayin. That Maras Ayin is usher afilu b'chedrei chadarim. This is the Mar Makom for that. Says the Gemara halfway down, does Beis Shammai Shita really make any sense? The Amar of Yehuda Amarat, Kol Makom she'asru chachamim mipnei Maras Ayin afilu b'chedrei chadarim usher. No matter what, what is Beis Shammai being lenient b'chedrei chadarim? In private property, you can take the ladder from shovach to shovach, no problem. But in public, you're not, because people will think you're going to be lahatiach chalgo. They're coming to patch the roof. That doesn't work with Marasayin. Marasayin is asur afilu b'chedrei chadarim. So says the Gemara, Tanai. Actually, it is a machlokes in the Tanaim as to whether or not we say that Marasayin is asur even behind closed doors. The Tanya, 2/3, 3/4 from the bottom. The Beitzah writes to Tanya, Shodchan b'chama, if your clothes get all wet. Shodchan b'chama, you can lay out your clothes in the sun. However, aval lo keneged ha'am, only in private, not in public. Same exact Mar Makom as Beis Shammai, same idea. But the laws of Reb Shimon Oster, they hold absolutely not. No, afilu b'chedrei chadarim, it's not allowed. So we see that this shita of Beis Shammai is reflected in other Tanaim. That's only version 1 of understanding our mission. Here's version 2, 6, 7 lines from the bottom. Ikad Amre, we're on Testament out of Ikad Amre. Amar Rav Chanan bar Ami machlokes b'rishus hayachid. The Beis Shammai is the Hud Rabbi Yehuda Marav, who Beis Hillel less the Hud Rabbi Yehuda Marav. The only machlokes is in a rishus hayachid. Everyone agrees that in the rishus harabim, that it says the Gemara about the rishus harabim divrei hakol asur. Everyone agrees that it's asur b'rishus harabim. That's not where they have a machlokes. The only machlokes is within private property, and that's where we have the machlokes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. That one of them holds Rabbi Yehuda Marav. Rabbi Yehuda Marav was the shita that says that Marasayin is not allowed even b'chedrei chadarim. That would be the shita Beis Hillel, and the other shita would be that of Beis Shammai. Fine, very good. So says the Gemara, Leima Rav, the Amar ke Beis Shammai, that in this second version of the Gemara, Rav, who seems to say that it's going to be asur b'chedrei chadarim, is the same as Beis Shammai. If we say that the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is only in private property and Beis Shammai is oser, that is the same shita as Rav. So how can Rav and Beis Shammai be aligned? Nobody holds like Beis Shammai, says the Gemara, because Beis Shammai is not the only Tana who holds this way. The Tanaihi, the Bryce, the Gemara says that there's a Bryce where we see that there's a machlokes about the din of Rav and afilu b'chedrei chadarim. The Tanya Shodchan b'chama v'lo keneged ha'am Rabbi Eliezer Reb Shimon. So we see that that's a machlokes as well. And Rav is not holding like Beis Shammai; he's holding like the Machnu Shita Reb Shimon and Reb Elazar and Reb Shimon at the bottom of that page. And that brings us to the top of Tes Amud Beis. Masnisin, our Mishnah, as we've learned it in either version, is not like Delo Ki Haitana, is not like the following Bryce. The Tanya, the Bryce writes, Amar Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, Modin Beis Shammai Beis Hillel shemolichen es hasulam mishovach l'shovach. This Bryce is totally different. This Bryce says that you are allowed to take a ladder from shovach to shovach. That which Beis Shammai explicitly stipulated was asur. And it seems here that they agree. That's for sure. Lo nechleku ela lahachzir. The only question was to return the ladder after using it. Namely, because of the mitzvah of Simchas Yontiv, you are allowed to go from shovach to shovach, from chicken coop to chicken coop, and take whichever birds you need, no problem. That's not the machlokes. Everyone agrees there. The only question is, can you put the ladder back to where you started? Interesting shaila. If you bring your talis bag on Shabbos, can you bring it back home? If you take a sefer, you took your machzor for Rosh Hashanah, you brought it to Shul, can you bring it back home with the last tefillah on Shabbos? Let's say you bring it back in the morning after Musaf, and you're not going to bring it back. Is that mutter, yes or no? So that would be rooted in this machlokes as well. So Beis Shammai Omrim ein machzir, and Beis Shammai says no, you can't put it back. And they say Omrim af machzir. So clearly, this is not like our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says there's a machlokes from shovach to shovach, which doesn't apply here. Amar Rabbi Yehuda b'med dvar abadei b'sulam shel shovach. All of this discussion only applies when the sulam is specific to a shovach, when everybody knows it's a shovach ladder, it's a pigeon ladder, everybody knows what it is. But if it says the Gemara, it's 6 lines down, aval the sulam shel aliyah, if you have your regular ladder, the one that you use for all of the things that you use to fix in your house, not a ladder that's specific to the shovach and divrei hakol asur. Everyone says that ladder is asur. That's the shita of Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Dosa Omer Matei Mechalim Mechalim. He says, well, not really. You can lean that. Well, seemingly that's what it means right now. You can lean that ladder from chalon to chalon. You just can't pick it up and move it. Still others say, Mishum Reb Dosa, Af Medadin Bo. Not only can you lean it in the name of Reb Dosa, but you can also be Medadin. Rashi explains Medadin. Rashi says 3 lines from the top, Medadin Bo. Rashi says, Imachalon Rachok, Ve'ein Rosh Sulam Agia Sham, Ba Behataya. Medadin Raglov Shel Sulam Ma'at. If you try to lean the window, it doesn't line up perfectly to the window. Fine. So you can kick the ladder a little bit and just slide it on the ground. You can't make a charitz all day because Shabbos issue. Fine, that's all good and fine, but you're allowed to slide the ladder. And then the Gemara tells a story that has 2 versions to it. B'nai Reb Chia, the children of Reb Chia, Napuk V'Kiryasa, they went to go check on their fields that were near the city. Ki Asu, when they got back, Amar Lahu, the father said to them, Reb Chia said to his children, Amar Lahu Avun, any halachic shilas come up while you were on the path. Says the Gemara, Amar Lo, Sulam Balia Denu Vitrinu. There was a shaila about a sulam. Rashi points out this is a sulam that was a regular sulam and not a sulam that was specific to a shovach. Hitarnu, and we were matir. We said everything is fine. We're going to say that this is allowed to be used. Amar Lehem, absolutely not. You need to go out right now and tell them that what you said is not correct, and really that ladder is also to use. What was this misunderstanding? So it says the Gemara as follows: Inhu, the children, the sons, Savor, because Rabbi Huda said that there's no discussion about a sulam of the aliyah. That was only his opinion, but Michlal, that implied the Tanakama Savar Pligi, that the Tanakama argued on that point, and really it was okay to use that ladder, the ladder that was a stam ladder, not specific to the Shovach, but that was really an incorrect understanding. What was really the case? 1/3 of the way down, Rabbi Huda Taime the Tanakama Kama Farish. Rabbi Huda really was just explaining the opinion of the Tanakama. How do we know that that's true? Because says the Gemara, what is the Beitzah write? The Beitzah writes that the Mishnah that you're taking the sulam from one shovach to another shovach. And basically, Rav Chia is saying to his kids, if you thought that we were talking about a ladder that wasn't specific to a shovach, then it shouldn't have said in the Mishnah, mishovach l'shovach. Why would it use that language from one to another? We're taking one from outside of the area of all of the chicken coops and bringing in a new one. That should have been the language, and because it wasn't that way, therefore, this must be what it means. Shel shovach in shel aliyah lo, and therefore the children were wrong. What were the children? How would they have responded to that? How would the children have responded to that? That's a great argument. If you want to say that the Beitzah implies that the ladder is a non-shovach ladder, then it should not have said mishovach l'shovach. It should have said l'shovach in the first place. Bring it from outside the chicken coop area to the chicken coop area. So Zog the Gemara, what were the children thinking? You're right that it says mishovach l'shovach, but it doesn't qualify what type of sulam it was. So therefore, does it say that it's a sulam shel shovach? Mishovach l'shovach. Tani va'afilu l'kama shovachim. It doesn't make a difference. It could have been any kind of ladder. That was version 1 of the Shaila that the children brought back to Reb Chia. Here's version 2. We're a little bit more than halfway down on Testament Beis. Ika de Amre, Amru Lo, Hitu Isulam Shalalia Baliyadenu, Hitranu. We had a Shaila about leaning a ladder from one location, so keeping the feet in place of the ladder. This is talking about a regular ladder. One that's called the Sulam of the Aliyah for the attic, but it's not one specific to the Shovachim. So it says the Gemara, we were asked a shaila about leaning this ladder, and we were matir. Omar Lehem, the father said, you got it all wrong. Go back out and tell the family that you gave the leniency to lean their ladder, keeping the feet in place from one place to another. This regular ladder, a non-chicken coop ladder, the one you buy from Lowe's, it's not specific. It says the Gemara, go out and tell them you made an error. How did the children misunderstand? Says the Gemara, Inhu Savar, Maidika Asar Tanakama, Kashari Reb Dosa. I might have thought that which the Tanakama was asering is exactly what Reb Dosa was being matir. Says the Gemara, that's not true. Reb Dosa was not being matir the sulam of the aliyah. He was being matir a sulam of a shovach. Below, you misunderstood. Maidika Shari Tanakama, Ka Asar Reb Dosa. that which the Tanakama was being shari, which was to lean a ladder of a shobach, is what Rav Dosa was forbidding, which was to lean a ladder of the to lean a ladder of the aliyah, and that's not allowed. That brings us to the 2/3 of the way. It says the Gemara that our Mishnah had stated about that according to our Mishnah, that one was allowed to lean a ladder of a particular kind. Alma, what do we see from our Mishnah? If you just look at our Mishnah in a vacuum, it seems to be that Beis Hillel is very strict. You're not allowed to lean the ladder from one shobach to another. You can only do it under certain circumstances, and Beis Hillel is matir. So that shows us that when it comes to Simchas Yom Tov, of being able to climb up and get a bird in order to shech it for Simchas Yom Tov, Beis Shammai is more strict, he has more rules, and Beis Hillel is more lenient. Uraminhi, we're 12 lines from the bottom on Testament days. How can that be that's the case? That Beis Shammai is the machmir when it comes to oneg to Simchas Yom Tov. Hashochet chayav ha'of b'Yom Tov. Beis Shammai omer yachfor b'deker v'yachaseh. That was the Mishnah that we started with on Daf Beis. That there he says you can dig on Yom Tov. That's a big kula. So we see that he's a makel when it comes to Simchas Yom Tov. Beis Hillel seems to be the one who's strict. So Beis Shammai over here in our case seems to be the strict one, the machmir one, because he doesn't allow the ladder to be moved from shobach to shobach. Yet in our Mishnah, he seems to be the lenient one, the makel one, because he allows the shoveling for kisui hadam. So Amar Rav Yochanan, and this is going to carry us to the next Mishnah. What does Rav Yochanan say? Muchlefes hashita. There's a mistake in one of these two sheets. Machlokes rishonim. Whose shita are we changing? Are we going to say that Beis Shammai is in fact the machmir, or are we going to say that Beis Hillel is in fact the machmir? That's subject to a machlokes in the rishonim. It says the Gemara, Mimai. This is not. How do you know that Rav Yochanan is right? Rav Yochanan did say the sentence, but we don't know exactly where he said it. It doesn't make sense that he said it here, because why is this case a clear case of muchlefes hashita? Says the Gemara, maybe the only time Beis Shammai would have ever been lenient is if the shovel's already in there. But he wouldn't have been lenient if the shovel wasn't in the ground. Maybe it's not. So it's not a good raya that Beis Shammai is a contradiction within himself. And furthermore, maybe here Beis Hillel is only being lenient because the ladder of the shobach is specific to the shobach. It's not the one you buy from Lowe's. That's mochiach alav hasam lo. But in a case where it's a non-shobach ladder, no way. So no raya from here. Ella ikashia ha kasha. If there is a question that Rav Yochanan was answering, it must be in the following case of Beis Shammai, 4 lines from the bottom. Here's another case of Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai is going to be strict here too. Beis Shammai omer, 4 lines from the bottom, lo yito ela im kein na'anami be'od yom. That the only time you can take an animal for on Yom Tov is if you physically pick it up and move it. Yeah, it's like a hagbah. You literally pick it up in your hand in order to make some type of indicator that it's no longer going to be muktzah and you're going to use it on Yom Tov. In regards to preparing an animal for Yom Tov, no, you just have to look and point. I don't know, what do we see? That here too. Beis Shammai requires that you do more in order to get to the point of simchas. You have to physically pick up the animal and say, I'm using this chicken. Beis Hillel just says point. So we see the Beis Shammai is strict yet again. He's machmir when it comes to Simchas Yom Tov. Or minhi, 2 lines from the bottom. How can that be? That doesn't work. We have our Mishnah, and our Mishnah indicated that Beis Shammai was the lenient one because he allowed the digging for the Kisvei Hadam. Maybe here, this is where we have Rav Yochanan. Maybe this is where Amar Rav Yochanan, Muchlefes Hashita, says the Gemara. No, even here too. Rav Yochanan is lav dafka, not necessarily the case that Rav Yochanan would say this here, because Dilma Lohi, maybe that's not the case. Maybe Ad Kan Lo Ka'amar Beis Shammai in our Mishnah, Lehecha De'ika Deker, no, it's turning to the top of Yodam Aleph. Aval Hecha De'ika Deker, no, it's low. Maybe we would say that the case of our Mishnah is not a raya. And not only that, inami, maybe we would also say that Ad Kan Lo Ka'amar Beis Hillel Hacha, Ela Kevan Demukzahu, Ve'omed, Demukzahu, Ve'omed, Ve'omer, Zebezani, no Tel Sagi, about Hasam. So maybe only over here would he be the lenient one, but maybe he wouldn't have had the same exact leniencies in regards to the case of the shobach and the ladders, not dafka. So therefore, that doesn't work. Ela ikashia hakashia. If that's the case, then maybe we would get to the possibility of Rabbi Yochanan's answering a different question. Also, ikashia hakashia in another case. Where's the case where we see that Beis Shammai is being strict? What do we see? We see the Beis Shammai Omer ein notlem es ha'eli lekatzev alav basar. You're not allowed to take a piece of wood. This is a klisha malachno. It serves a specific piece of wood. And the halacha is that you're not allowed to repurpose that to be a cutting board. Okay, Beis Hillel matir. Alma, what do we see? The Gabe Simchas Yom to Beis Shammai l'chumra, Beis Hillel l'kuda. We see yet again. We have the same exact kasha. Our Mishnah still the indicator that Beis Shammai was a big maker by Simchas Yom Tov because he allowed for the digging for kisui hadam. Or minni, the Beitzah taught in our Mishnah, shochet chayv o Beis Shammai v'chulei. And maybe there, that's where Rabbi Yochanan would say, Rabbi Yochanan would sashita. Says the Gemara there too. Rabbi Yochanan would not allow for such a thing. That's not such a good answer. Maybe Dilma Lohi Ad Kan Lo Kamri Beis Shammai Hasan Alecha Deika Deker notes. Maybe in our Mishnah the only reason he was lenient is if the shovel's already dug into the ground. Alecha Deika Derech No Deker notes low. That's the first possible reason, which is, as we've explained 3-4 times already, that our Mishnah is lav dafka according to Beis Shammai. You can't learn anything from our Mishnah about him being the machmer, because that case, the shovel was already in the ground and all the dirt above it was considered to be released and easy to use. And inami as well, right as we get to the wide lines. On Daf Yomi Aleph inami ad kan lo kamer Beis Hillel hacha ela deika toras kliyalav about hasam lo. Maybe we'd say that over here, the only reason why Beis Hillel is lenient is because it has the status of a k'nei. It must therefore be that maybe if Rabbi Yochanan really was going to use this answer of Mukhlefes Hashita, that really the shitas of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are flipped, it's going to be in another place. Where was Beis Shammai? Machmer, first of the longest lines, third of the way down Yod Aleph, heading toward the Mishnah. Beis Shammai Omer Mein Nosnin Esaor Lifnei Hadorsan. You're not allowed to put out leathers, hides on the ground. They didn't mind if people stepped on them or sat on them. You can't pick them up. The only way you could move them is if they have kazayis basar. It says you can pick it up anyways, and that too shows a chumrah. Alma, what do we see? So we see again that Beis Shammai is the machmer. So we should ask our kasha for the 5th time. From our Mishnah, we see the Beis Shammai is the maker because he allows for kisui adam. So says the Gemara yet again, no, Rabbi Yochanan's answer still doesn't work here. This is not sophisticated enough of a case to even need Beis Shammai, to need Rabbi Yochanan's answer. Why? How do you know that Rabbi Yochanan would have a problem with this? Maybe Dilma Lohi, maybe this isn't the problem. Our Mishnah is not a raya that Beis Shammai is of the opinion that we have a chumrah, because there is no chumrah. Maybe it's only because the shovel was in the ground already by kisui. And not only that, not only is it easy to understand Beis Shammai in that way, but inami maybe the only reason why Beis Hillel was lenient here by the hides is because it's something that you can sit on. Forget about muksas mutter to sit on. Abal hasam lo, but he would not say the same thing in the other case, and therefore there's no need for Rabbi Yochanan. Let's try for the very last time. Beis Shammai was of the opinion that storekeepers would have kind of these trees and these kind of enclosures, like blinds of some kind, or doors that he said in the salkiness of trees, you couldn't remove them on Yom Tov. Beis Hillel would allow them. Alma, what do we see? The Gabe Simchas Yom Tov Beis Shammai l'chumra. We see that here Beis Shammai is strict yet again. Beis Hillel l'kuda, asking the same question, or mimi ashochet chayav of Yom Tov. So we see the same kasha. So the Gemara tries to explain Bishlama Beis Shammai l'kasha. We can understand why there's no contradiction in Beis Shammai. The same answer we've given multiple times. Hasam deika deker notes, achat deleka deker notes, as we've said 5 times already, that our Mishnah of Beis Shammai and Daf Beis is not a raya for anything, because it's very possible that Beis Shammai, the dirt was already in the ground. All is fine and good by Beis Shammai. You can't learn anything about whether he's a machmir. Beis Hillel kasha, but this would be a problem for Beis Hillel, and maybe this is where Rabbi Yochanan would use his answer. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mukhlefes Hashita. Says the Gemara, no. Still Rabbi Yochanan is not necessary here, and we don't know where his line of Mukhlefes Hashita applied. Why not? Because Ad kan lo ka'amrei Beis Hillel hacha ela mishum de'ein binyan bekelim ve'ein stir bekelim. Maybe Beis Hillel would have his own leniency over here, because he says you can take off the shades, you can take off the doors of these particular rooms, no problem at all, because there's no such thing as binyan and stira. There's no halachic issue of ein binyan and stira b'kelim, and it's fine. Just remove the coverings from the door, and all is well. Awesome, no, but in the other case, Beitzah wouldn't have said the same thing. So basically, in short, we've tried 5 different approaches to explain Rabbi Yochanan, and we weren't able to figure any of them out. And we'll stop right here at the Mishnah and pick up on Shabbos. And I hope you all have a beautiful night.